The dust rolled across the town of Silver Creek like a restless ghost, carrying the scent of old whiskey, sweat, and regret. Jack Callahan leaned against a half-broken fence, his hat tilted low, a $5 ticket folded in his calloused hand, a ticket he'd bought on a drunken dare at the saloon, part of the town's ridiculous marriage lottery meant to match lonely men with brides from far-off territories. Most folks thought it was a joke, a way for the mayor to bring more women to the frontier, and Jack had laughed along until his name got called. The crowd cheered and clapped him on the back, shouting, "Hope she ain't uglier than a prairie mule, Jack." But the laughter died the moment she arrived. She was taller than any man in town, an Apache woman with skin kissed by the desert sun, long black hair that shimmered like midnight, and eyes that glowed with a wild, untamed pride. The whispers came quick. "She's a savage," someone hissed. "Ain't right, mixing blood like that." But Jack couldn't speak. His $5 joke had turned into a living, breathing storm of a woman, and a contract signed by the town judge said she was now his wife. When she stepped off the wagon, the entire town seemed to freeze. The wind stopped. The hammering ceased. Even the saloon piano went silent. She didn't bow or smile. She stared straight at Jack, her gaze steady and fierce, and said in a voice deep as thunder, "Name's Naya. You bought a wife, cowboy. Hope you can afford what comes with one." That night, Silver Creek buzzed with talk. Some said the sheriff should cancel it. Others just laughed, calling Jack a fool who'd married into trouble. But as he watched her from the shadows, standing tall beneath the starlight by the water well, he couldn't look away. There was strength in her stillness, power in her silence. She wasn't a prize, she was a challenge, a force of nature he couldn't understand. "Didn't ask for this," he muttered when he finally approached her. "Neither did I," she replied, calm and certain. Her voice carried no anger, only truth. And for the first time in years, Jack Callahan felt small. Between them stretched a silence heavier than the desert heat. But something sparked there, not love, not yet, but something unspoken. A strange respect, maybe even destiny. As the sun sank behind the red hills and the wind rose again, whispering through the empty streets of Silver Creek, Jack felt it in his bones. This was no ordinary marriage. It was the beginning of a reckoning, a story the whole frontier would one day whisper about, a tale born not from luck, but from fire and pride. Morning came with a crimson sky that bled across the desert, painting the wooden rooftops of Silver Creek in firelight. Jack woke to the sound of boots on the porch, the heavy, steady steps of Naya moving outside their small shack at the edge of town. He hadn't slept much. Every creak of the floorboards reminded him that a stranger, his wife, according to the law, was under his roof. He found her by the corral, already working, her hands strong as she pulled water from the well and brushed down his horse like she'd done it all her life. "You don't have to do that," he said. She didn't answer, just kept working, her dark braids swinging with every movement. The town watched them from a distance. Women whispered behind laundry lines. Men spat tobacco and muttered that it wouldn't last. But Jack felt something shift as the days dragged on. Naya didn't speak much, yet her silence spoke louder than the gossip. She moved with the grace of someone born from the earth itself, quiet, unbending, and full of storms. He learned small things. She liked the smell of rain, hated whiskey, and could shoot straighter than any man he'd met. One afternoon, a group of ranch hands rode by, laughing loud and cruel. "Hey Jack," one shouted, "how's life with the giant squaw? She cook you buffalo stew?" The laughter stung like sand in the wind. Before Jack could reply, Naya turned slowly, her gaze cutting through them like a blade. "Say it again," she said, calm as still water. The man froze, the laughter died, and for a long moment, nobody breathed. Then they rode off, muttering under their breath, their pride bruised. Jack looked at her, half in awe, half afraid. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. "They needed to learn," she replied, her tone steady, eyes still on the horizon. That night, as the fire crackled between them, Jack found himself asking what kind of woman she really was, warrior, widow, outcast, or something more. "Why'd you agree to this?" he finally asked. She stared into the flames for a long time before answering. "My people are gone," she said softly. "Your town took their land. Maybe this way, I take something back." Her words hit him harder than any bullet. He wanted to argue, To say he wasn't part of that past, but the truth hung heavy in the air. The silence that followed was not cold this time. It was the kind that understands pain. Outside, the wind carried the sound of coyotes crying across the desert. Jack watched her face glow in the firelight, strong, scarred, beautiful in a way that defied the world, and for the first time, he realized his $5 lottery had bought him not a wife, but a mirror to his own soul. The days turned hotter as July crept over Silver Creek, baking the ground until it cracked like dry bone. Jack and Naya worked side by side in uneasy silence, mending fences, tending the horses, and learning to move around each other like two strangers trapped in the same dream. Some nights, Jack would find himself stealing glances at her while pretending to whittle by the fire. There was something unbreakable about the way she carried herself, calm, but with a storm behind her eyes. One evening, the sheriff rode up with a message from the mayor, saying the townsfolk had been talking again. "Some folks don't like this marriage business," he said, looking awkwardly between them. "They say it ain't right. A white cowboy and an Apache woman." Jack clenched his jaw. Naya didn't flinch. "You tell them," she said. "They can choke on their own hate." The sheriff sighed, muttered something about keeping the peace, and rode off into the dusk. When he was gone, Jack turned to her. "You don't fear anyone, do you?" She looked at him, her voice quiet but sharp. "Fear's a thing men carry like a badge. My people carried fire." That night, thunder rolled over the desert, a rare summer storm breaking the sky open. Rain poured down in sheets, washing the dust from the roofs, drenching the dry earth. Jack stepped outside to pull the horses under shelter, but Naya was already there, soaked, laughing softly at the sky as lightning split it in two. For the first time, Jack saw her smile, a fierce, wild smile that lit her face like dawn. Something in him cracked. "You'll catch a fever," he said, but she only looked at him and whispered, "The rain doesn't hurt me, cowboy. It remembers me." When she turned away, he felt the loss of her warmth like a blade. Inside, as the storm roared, Jack sat by the window, watching her silhouette move against the flashes of light, tall and unyielding. He thought of all the women he'd met before, soft, gentle, fragile things, but Naya was different. She wasn't made to be tamed or owned. She was born of the same land that broke men's bones and buried their pride. When the storm finally faded, the town slept, but Jack couldn't. He kept replaying her words, her eyes, the sound of her laughter. Somewhere deep in his chest, a seed had begun to grow, quiet and stubborn, like life pushing through desert stone. By dawn, he knew the truth he wouldn't dare say aloud. The $5 he'd spent had bought him not luck, not shame, but something rare, a chance to become more than the man he was. The sun rose over Silver Creek the next morning like a blade of gold cutting through the mist. The storm had washed the town clean, but it couldn't wash away the unease. Word had spread that the mayor planned to end the marriage lottery. After the scandal of Jack and Naya's union, some said Jack should annul it. Others whispered that Naya should be sent back to the reservation. Jack heard the gossip at the saloon, the sneers, the jokes. He didn't answer them, just drank his coffee and stared at the dust curling in the sunlight. But when one man slammed his mug down and spat, "That Apache don't belong here," Jack's hand moved before his mind caught up. The punch cracked through the room like thunder. The man fell, bleeding, and the saloon went silent. Jack didn't wait to be thrown out. He walked straight home, his knuckles raw, his heart heavier than ever. Naya was outside, repairing a saddle, her eyes steady as he approached. She said nothing, but she saw the blood on his hand, and something unreadable flickered across her face. "They'll never stop," Jack said quietly. "Not until we leave this place." Naya stood, tall and unshaken. "Then we leave," she said simply. "The world is wide." Her words felt like a key turning in a locked door. That night, they packed what little they owned, his rifle, her bow, a few supplies, and at dawn, they rode out of Silver Creek together. The townsfolk watched in silence as their horses kicked up dust along the empty trail. Some said good riddance. Others just stared, ashamed of their own smallness. Jack didn't look back, and neither did she. For miles they rode without speaking, until the town was just a blur behind them, and the desert stretched endless ahead. "You sure about this?" he asked finally. "You could still go back, Naya." She turned her face toward him, the wind catching her hair like a banner. "I don't go back," she said. "I move forward." The sun climbed higher, blazing across the land, and Jack realized he had never felt so free or so uncertain. Whatever lay ahead, it was theirs to face. Two souls bound not by chance, but by the stubborn fire that refused to die. As the horizon shimmered and the desert swallowed their trail, Jack knew Silver Creek would remember this day, the day a cowboy rode away with a giant Apache woman, leaving behind a town too small for their story. And somewhere in that boundless silence between sky and earth, a new legend began to breathe.